And welcome to the OHIO podcast, everybody. I'm your host, Buckeye Boggs. That man over there is Chris Wilds. Yes, we're Buckeye fans, but this is going to be our Indiana preview. We've been doing two-a-days for several years, Chris. That's what we call our Big Ten previews that we always do. And this is going to be no different this year, except the only difference is, Chris, is now we're on YouTube. And so people get to see our ugly faces when we do this, not just our voices. But Indiana is on the clock first. Chris, did we start with the worst possibly in the Big Ten? Possibly?
Well, I'll tell you, I would say there's two teams that are going to battle it out for that title. Uh, and you know what? This is definitely one of them.
Mm. They've hit the transfer portal big time to try, I think, to bounce back a little bit from their lack of talent. We've got experts to come on and talk in this episode. We've got betting lines we want to talk about. We got history. We've got schedules, all of that good stuff. So, guys, let's dive right into the Indiana Hoosiers 2023. But first, before we do that, let's talk a little bit of history, Chris, shall we?
Let's do it.
All right, Indiana was 4-8 last year in 2022, 2-7 in the Big Ten. This will be the seventh season for Tom Allen with Indiana. Of course, they're located in beautiful Bloomington, Indiana. They play at Memorial Stadium with a capacity of 52,626. Chris, their all-time record is one of the worst in the Big Ten, 500, 704, and 44. It might be the worst in the Big Ten, next to, I don't know, Rutgers possibly. I'd have to look that up. Northwestern maybe. Their bowl record is 3-10, but they have won two conference titles in the Big Ten. Last year, they started the year off pretty hot, Chris. They were 3-0 off the bat with wins at Illinois, which that's looking back now, that was a huge win
That's a
for
big
them.
win. Yeah.
They beat Idaho. They won in overtime against Western Kentucky. And then they went on a pretty big losing streak. They lost 7 in a row before defeating Sparty in double overtime for their second overtime win of the season before losing to in-state rival Purdue, which got their record to 4-8. Uh, Vegas had them at 4.5 wins last year, Chris. We both said take the under. Our prediction was 2-10, and our prediction was, for the most part, pretty much true. So, Chris, looking back at Indiana historically, looking back on the season they had last year, we both said take the under. We were pretty doggone close because they only had 4 wins, which is two more than what we thought they would have, but 2 overtime wins. So we
Well,
were
I'll
pretty.
tell you, Eric, that Illinois win, that was the shocker, like you said. And Bielema has to be looking back at himself and asking how that happened.
Yeah.
Because if you go and you look, yeah, they took down Idaho, but they needed overtime to beat Western Kentucky at home. And then their only other victory came, of course, as we talked about, that road game at a really bad Michigan State team last season. So, yeah, that Illinois win, I still don't know how they got it.
Yeah, they were early in the season, right? Catch them at the right time, and I think maybe they're hoping for the same type of karma this year for them with Ohio State catching them at the beginning of the season to start the year off. But Chris, I looked back at last year and I thought, this was not the same Indiana team that we were worried about 2 seasons before that. If you go back, I believe it was 2019 and 2020, both years, Indiana had pretty good years. 2020, they came back big time in the COVID year inside the horseshoe and really gave us a scare down in the fourth quarter. Outside of the loss to Alabama, that was by far, in my opinion, the best challenge Ohio State got that season.
Yeah,
And there's a lot of people who thought Indiana should be in the Big Ten championship because at the end of the day, Ohio State didn't meet the criteria that they had established at the
right.
beginning of the season, but that was just Karen Warren being Karen Warren.
And let me tell you, Eric, there's one. I mean, if there's many differences between the 2021 2022 Indiana Hoosiers versus what we saw in 19 and 20. But the biggest difference, I think we will agree, is actually residing with the Washington Huskies right now. They let a Heisman caliber candidate get away there.
Michael Penix Jr.
Yes.
was the heart and soul of that. So we have brought on for these this year, since Indiana's our first, we're going to kind of let you all know what to expect moving forward. But we're bringing on experts from other podcasts who cover these other football teams via Big Banter, who we are a part of as well. And so the LEO podcast, Brandon from the LEO podcast is coming up. He's going to talk, give us more insight, if you will, to the Indiana program that he loves and covers. So here he is. Welcome to the show, Brandon. And we're back at the OHIO podcast. And now, as you can see, I'm joined by an expert from the Indiana LEO podcast. All right, first question. Brandon Dubich, so good to have you in tonight.
Thank you.
LEO, explain to all of us ignorant Buckeyes what in the world is going on over there in Bloomington with LEO.
Well, I think Kevin Wilson all too well. Right. When he left, I say that in jest, left Indiana, it needed a culture overhaul. Right. In comes Tom Allen. Mr. Wilson, he led a tough program and spirits were low. So what did Tom Allen come in? He wanted to lift everyone up, and it really means love everyone. Right.
Okay.
And he wanted to bring that mantra of we're in this all together. It was a little bit of a toxic environment where it was coaches versus players versus players. So in kind of a more positive, uplifting style, Tom Allen introduced LEO. It's what they end every practice with. It's what they end with every meeting with. So it's kind of the program's mantra, I guess if you wanted a clear definition of it.
Cool. Yeah, I was curious. I mean, I knew just from, the few things I had, picked up on doing some research, but I know a lot of our watchers on our YouTube channel and listeners on the podcast will have no idea what LEO stands for. So I wanted to get that out of the way. So a couple years ago, you scared the bejeebus out of us in Ohio Stadium. I know you're probably bitter that Kevin Warren, or as we like to call him in our podcast, Karen Warren, changed the rules at the end of the season to benefit the Scarlet and Gray. I'm sure you're still a little bitter about that. But what has happened since then with the program, Brandon? It seems like it's fallen off a little bit.
So let me back up there. I wasn't bitter, honestly. The right team got in, and honestly, that's what I all care. Like, it would have been awesome for IU to get to a Big Ten championship. They haven't been to one since the Rose Bowl season 50 years ago. It would have been fantastic. But honestly, it's good for the conference if the conference does well, right? And honestly, Ohio State's the best chance right now. Well, maybe not recently with Michigan, but honestly, Ohio State on the big stage would have been better. So I wouldn't say it's been bitter. But what's been going on recently? No quarterback, no chance, my man. We've had no quarterback. It's been musical chairs to kind of find someone. When IU went to 5 bowl games in 4 years, Nate Sudfeld, Michael Penix, Peyton Ramsey, right? All guys that have won on the big stage, and Nate Sudfeld's been in the league for a while, and Michael Penix is a Heisman hopeful, right? So when IU was making bowl games regularly, they had a quarterback. You couldn't name IU. Non-IU fans couldn't name IU's quarterback the last 2 or 3 years, right? That's been the problem.
Penix leaving the program. What's up with that? For those who weren't following Hoosier football.
3 straight season-ending injuries. I mean, it almost seemed like both parties were cursed. We would have liked for him to stay, but he had a chance to go match up with his offensive coordinator that put him on the national stage, right? I'm blanking on his name, the coach of Washington right now, who went to Fresno State. So, yeah, I mean, he had a chance to go make magic happen out there. And so it was a mutual parting. But IU was kind of like, this guy can't play a full season. Last season, in fact, was his first full season. He never started and finished a season with IU. So it was a mutual parting of ways, though everyone was sad to see him go.
Yeah. So you guys get a transfer quarterback in Taven Jackson, who's an Indiana kid, went down to Tennessee. Now he's back. What's the expectations there?
So he fits the system so much better than the quarterback who will not be named from last year. The system is really built to get out of the pocket, move, and get playmakers in space. That's what he can do. He has legs. He can get out and run. He's probably pound for pound the most talented quarterback that's been at IU. And I say that with Michael Penix being a Heisman hopeful. Pound for pound, probably the most talented quarterback. He just has absolutely no experience, right? So there's going to be inexperience, bumps and bruises for sure. He fits the scheme. The talent is there. So yeah, I mean, there's a lot of hope for Hoosier fans, but again, I mean, he's a redshirt freshman playing in the Big Ten East, so you got to have tempered expectations.
Yeah, Jalen Lucas, man, a little bit of a firecracker there,
right?
Yeah. So I mean, as I get into Indiana and I begin to research a little bit as I come up with my predictions for the season, I see that kid and I circle him as being dangerous.
Yeah.
So is he pretty much going to be the offense outside of the quarterback at this point? Or does Indiana have some more variety within the skills position to threaten an Ohio State and make a run at being a bowl team this year?
So I'm going to bring, since you had to bring up a bad memory, I got to bring up a bad memory for you. Do you remember the little small receiver that played for Purdue? And what happened with that?
Yes, still well. Okay, so when I'm watching him and his highlights from his freshman year, that's exactly what I'm thinking. I went
exactly.
Oh crap! Another trip to Indiana with a little guy.
Yep.
That's good, But I will say this: we're running a much different defensive scheme than we were doing then that day. So, hopefully that doesn't happen again. But yeah, so there's a lot of outside of him. Is the skills position up to par to make a 500 run this year?
Absolutely. Cam Camper was well on his way to being at least an honorable mention before he went down last year. Do you remember E.J. Williams and his freshman year with Trevor Lawrence? If not, it was ages. It was ages ago, right?
This is like what, 6 years ago or more? 7?
Ooh, no. It was EJ's freshman year. It was Trevor's senior year. So it was 4 years ago. Anyway,
so 29. It had been 2020.
Yeah. He put up insane numbers, and then DJ Ukulele became quarterback, and this guy fell off the map. So you got Cam Camper on one side, you got EJ Williams on the other side, and then everyone lists Jalen Lucas as a running back. He will take more snaps in the slot than he will in the backfield. I'm probably giving away too much, but I don't even think that's a hot take. I think that that is going to happen. Jalen Lucas is going to be all over the field. So I think with those three wide receivers, Taven just has to not be awful for a shot at 500. IU had probably the second worst quarterback play in all of Big Ten last year, and went 4-8. They need to just not have a average quarterback play, and this team can go 6-6 and go back to bowling.
Other side of the football, it looks like you guys hit the transfer portal big time. Is that a concern for you?
Well, we've seen it work for Michigan State, and we've seen it not work for Michigan State.
That's right.
So honestly, June, July, August is hope season. The guys that they brought in are studs, right? Our edge rushers. I think it's probably the best edge rushers I can remember, best edge rushing duo IU's ever had in my time of being a fan. The secondary was arguably the worst secondary I think I've ever seen, and there's been teams that have put up 700 yards against IU. So all the talent's there. It's just, does the unit mesh or not? That's honestly what it comes down to. And especially early in the year against Ohio State, it could be ugly. But I think as it goes on, the talent's there to come together. And again, kind of similar to the quarterback play, IU's defense was 104th in the country. If it can just be in the 60s and 70s, 40, 50 spots better, I think that's a bowl team.
All right. Give me your basement and your ceiling on record and what your expectations as a fan are.
Perfect. Expectations were the reason Michael wanted me on and not him. A little inside baseball for people that don't know how podcasts get set up. So, unfortunately, Taven Jackson is all talent, no results. And we win our 2 non-conference games and we go 2-10 and Tom Allen's fired. It's realistic. It's realistic. Unfortunately. That's the basement. The ceiling, being an realistic IU fan, is 7-5 and a bowl win, 8-5. That's the ceiling. The reality is, Louisville with Jeff Brom is going to be tough.
Mm-hmm. And that one's in Lucas Oil, is it not?
It is. Yeah. So which is a little bit of the even things out a little bit. Even though Louisville travels great, I hate their fans, but they really do travel great.
I have heard that. We haven't played Louisville since I was like a teenager in the preteen in the early 90s.
Right.
So it's been a long time, but I have heard that from people that Louisville's fan base is obnoxious.
Yeah, they're
Are they as bad? Are they as bad as us? That's the question.
So here's the thing. So
you have to think about that.
I do. Well, here's the thing. So Michael despises you guys. I should hate you more. I'm a Pittsburgh kid, right? I'm a Pittsburgh kid who went to Indiana, right?
Wow.
So I inherently hate everything Ohio, right? But I have nothing wrong against Ohio State, right? I hate Kentucky. I think Kentucky's a rival, right? And I think Louisville is little brother to Kentucky, just as Purdue is little brother to IU. So I don't hate Ohio State. You guys are obnoxious, but you beat us, right? Like when I played sports, when I crushed teams, I was obnoxious too. So you guys pick on us, but we deserve to be picked on. So yeah, I don't think you guys are that bad. Louisville fans, I hope not many fans listen because I'm going to say something controversial. It's a top 5 scummy program of like the entire country. Like that's the reason I don't like them. Their football team with Petrino, their basketball team with Patino. It's an entire program of ick. So I just don't like them at all. And they act like none of that ever happened. They are blameless in all of their allegations.
Was it Papa John's guy too? I mean,
is there a greasier guy? Literally, is there a greasier guy than him?
I don't think so. I don't think so.
But yeah, I mean, so going back, yeah, I do think 7-5 and the first bowl win since 1993 is probably the ceiling. Michael's gonna smack me when he listens to this. I do think we go heartbreaking 5-7 again. I think we go into the Purdue game to West Lafayette and we drop it to go 5-7. Yeah, I do think we go 2-2 in non-con, and then I think we go 3-6. Unfortunately,
yeah,
3, yeah, 3-6 in conference play.
I don't just in my little bit here. I don't know that Purdue. I don't know, man. I think you guys might be better in Purdue.
So here's the thing. They just have the better quarterback. We have the better weapons. I think we have the better stars. They have a deeper roster.
Whole new coaching staff. That means something, man. It really does. Now, can they get it figured out by the end of the season? I don't know.
Yeah. I don't love the coaching hire, to be honest. I don't like coordinators that almost come out of the blue and put up insane seasons. Now, he did put up an insane season.
Defensive guy, though.
Right.
I mean, Purdue is all about the O. That's so I don't know. I don't know how that's going to mesh. So we'll see.
I don't think it is, but I'm biased, obviously. So.
Right. So I can't wait to see the banter podcast between you guys and those guys. That'd be a lot of fun. But anyways, so we got kind of your expectation there. You kind of got your prediction there. So I appreciate that. here's I guess is what we're going to say. Since we've done that, let's talk about the very first game, opening season, Indiana, Ohio State. I've been to Bloomington. Last time we opened the season on a Thursday night in your house, I was there. I was there.
Beautiful night.
Oh yeah, it was scary for about the first half, and then we decided to play football in the second half, and that was the J.K. Dobbins introduction, first game in college to college football. Gosh, we miss him. But here we are again, opening the season again in Bloomington. Are you guys catching Ohio State at the right time? New quarterback.
That's an unanswerable question. There's no such thing as catching Ohio State at the right time. I actually don't think so because okay. I don't think there's any momentum. I don't think either team is meshed. So I think it's talent on talent, and there's a clear discrepancy on week one. Now, Eric, do you like sequels?
In movies, probably not.
Well, don't be surprised if this is a sequel to Thursday Night a few years ago. Don't be surprised if IU maybe has a 10-7 lead. It's maybe a 17-14, 17-13 lead at half. And then it goes on to be like 48-28, 45-31, something like that. I do think it's going to be an IU cover. But I do think Ohio State wins by 2.5, maybe 3 scores.
Okay, fair enough. Yeah. That sounds like the most likely scenario, to be honest with you. But, the first game like that, the jitters. Ohio State's bringing back quite a bit of experience outside of the tackles and the quarterback on offense.
Yeah.
Defense looks very deep. This defense is actually, I think, going to be the strength of our team, in all honesty.
Haven't said that in a while.
It's been since 2019 when Chase Young and Jeff Okudah. So it's going to be interesting. Because that's not an easy first game. It's just not. A lot of people say, it's Indiana. You guys have won 20-some straight. I go, yeah, but go back and look at the scores.
Yeah.
When Wilson was coach, that was always a nail biter. It didn't matter what your record was. When we went to Bloomington, it sucked. It was going to be a 4-quarter football game. I expect very similar things here in this one. So, man, I'm looking forward to the game. Interesting fact. Here's a factoid for you. You can share it on your podcast. Ohio State is playing 6 road games for the first time since the 1800s.
Wow.
And we're going to the state of Indiana 3 times.
Not counting the Big Ten championship?
Well, hopefully 4. But
there we go.
3 scheduled, right? 3 scheduled. Yeah. Bloomington, West Lafayette, and South Bend. I don't know of any football team ever who's done that before. Maybe Michigan or Michigan State, maybe.
I would bet Michigan and Michigan State because they had a Notre Dame series for a while. They both, especially Michigan State.
To catch all 3 on the road, I don't know, man. I have to do some research, but this is good. That's a little factoid for you there.
Real quick, Eric. Then since you have an Indiana guy on, have you been to South Bend or West Lafayette?
This will be my first trip ever to West Lafayette. We are going to that game, taking a show on the road. I have never had the opportunity to be in South Bend. This is the first time since the 90s that Ohio State is playing in South Bend. And right now, the tickets for that game are through the roof, over $700 per ticket.
To get in the door. It's not. So, again, I'm sure there are maybe some Notre Dame fans watching. Tailgating is horrible. Bar scene, horrible. In the stadium, it's kind of like Wrigley Field. It has all the nostalgia. It's kind of a crappy stadium, to be completely honest. Now the environment in there gets going a little bit, especially on a Saturday night game. What time are you guys playing at Notre Dame?
It has not been determined yet. It's obviously an NBC thing since it's a home
so
game.
3:30 or 7:30 probably, right?
I am guessing it's going to be a night game. Is my guess.
Yeah. Well, anyway, thanks for having me on, man. I appreciate it. We'll have to get back. You'll have to tell me what your tailgating experience is at West Lafayette. Nothing will touch Bloomington. Nothing.
Bloomington was fun, man. We had a lot of fun when we went. And this was, like you said, if you recall, this was Kevin Wilson's first game as our OC.
Yeah.
And I took a Kevin Wilson sign that said "Thank you, Indiana, for fixing our offense." I was told I was number one by quite a few of your buddies. It was a lot of fun. But
Yeah.
yeah, Bloomington was great. We had a great time in Bloomington, and yeah, I almost decided to come back, but I had to choose and pick. I'm trying to get to every Big Ten
No, I
school.
get it.
And so, we're going to Purdue this year. So
Ugh.
this is going to be, yeah, we don't have good luck there either, man.
No, you don't. No, you don't.
they're
I root for Ohio State, and I'm not just saying that because I'm on your show. Anyone against Purdue, I'm a fan of the other team.
that sounds like us against that team up north, man. We are Ohio State number one and number two, whoever's playing the maize and blue. That's how it goes.
100%.
Brandon, tell everybody where they can catch the LEO podcast at.
Yeah, so we record on the off season one show every week. We're audio only on everywhere you can find your podcast. So Apple, Spotify, SoundCloud. Big Banter is trying to urge our move to YouTube, so we may be coming out with the YouTube show. During the season, we do a preview and a post game, so we have two shows during the season as well. So thanks, Eric. I appreciate it, man.
Thanks, Baron. Take care. Have a great season.
You too. See ya.
And we want to thank Brandon from the LEO podcast for being a part of our Indiana preview. I hope you enjoyed that. That's what you're going to get with these previews, and that's what you're going to get being a part of Big Banter. It's such an awesome thing. So That being said, Chris, let's break down their roster a little bit here, Chris. I don't know if I just called you Aaron or not there.
No, you didn't.
Okay. I wasn't sure. Usually we have Aaron with us for these as well every year. But all right, looking at their roster now, I'm going to go ahead and say Tavion Jackson is going to be their quarterback. The transfer from Tennessee, from the state of Indiana. I believe this is the closest thing they have had since Michael Penix Jr. And I think the success of this season is riding on how quickly Jackson can get acclimated to Division I football, because he's not had a lot of playing time, how quickly he can get this offense moving in the right direction. We'll see. I think he's got a ton of talent, but can they jump up and maybe surprise a few people like Brandon's hoping they do? Or are they going to be in that 2-10 basement that he said is a possibility? It's all riding on Jackson and really the health of this team. Because Chris, as you look over this roster, right off the bat, there's some decent skill guys. Look at the wide receiver position. Cam Camper's a senior. They got in DeQuincy Carter, who's a transfer. He's a senior. McCullough is a junior. He's an upperclassman. You look at the running back position. Josh Henderson is a senior. And you got Jalen Lucas, which is going to be a do-everything type of player, like Brandon told us. Running back, wide receiver, wildcat. He's going to be one Ohio State's definitely going to have to keep their eye on. If Indiana has got any chance, just like Brandon said in the preview, it's based on Jalen Lucas just running all over this field. And then you look at the offensive line. You got Mike Caddick, senior. Zach Carpenter, senior. Matthew Bedford, senior. Khalil Benson, junior. Carter Smith is the lone underclassman as a redshirt freshman. That is a lot of upper class girth on that offensive line, Chris. And I don't know. I look at this offense. I think they're going to be better than last year's offense. What do you think, Chris?
Oh, I definitely think so. And like you said, and let's not discount it, that offensive line, having that type of upperclassman leadership on it is going to be huge, especially for Tavion Jackson, who, he sat on the bench primarily behind Hendon Hooker last year. So he really.
And who wouldn't? Who wouldn't?
Yeah, who wouldn't? But I mean, he really did not get very much playing time at all. No. I really like the upside with Jalen Lucas for them. But, I just feel like as good as they may be on the offensive line, they're going to have their hands full with the defensive line of Ohio State because, we saw it firsthand at that spring game, Eric. I mean, these guys are juniors and seniors for the most part, but not a one of them is ranked up where the caliber of guys that you have on that Ohio State
Right,
offensive
right.
line, and
I, yeah,
they
I
just
think
had their way with them.
I think this is going to be a very good litmus test for this defensive line for
I
Ohio
agree.
State. This isn't Notre Dame's offensive line. This isn't Michigan's offensive line. It's not Penn State's offensive line.
No.
But as far as your lower tier Big Ten schools that you're going to play in, and that's definitely what Indiana is. This is a experienced big offensive line,
Yeah.
and so I think this is a really really good litmus test to start off with and see where your team is at to start the season off. All right, let's
Yes.
move over to the defensive side of the ball here. So on the defensive side, you've got on the defensive line another transfer, and really the defense is where the transfer central took place.
Yeah.
I mean, literally half your defense almost is from the transfer portal. But defensive line, you got Andre Carter, who's a redshirt senior transfer, and you also have Philip Bildy, who's a senior, or Bildi. I'm not really sure how they pronounce that. Then you got the two guys coming back, upperclassmen coming back from last year's team, Miles Jackson and Patrick Lucas Jr. That's your defensive line. Pretty good defensive line. They're feeling pretty confident in that defensive line. So again, another great litmus test for Ohio State game one against a pretty good defensive line. We're as far as Buckeye fans, we're weary of the offensive line. And so if you're Indiana, this is where you feel pretty good about your possible matchup against what's going to be a top five ranked Ohio State team.
Well, and Eric, you look at it. The fact is, our offensive line practices against what's arguably the best defensive line in the country every day. If you struggle with Indiana's defensive line, it could be a long season.
It's going to be, yeah, you ain't kidding. I also think that this could be a really good benefit for Indiana looking at their season, and we're going to jump into their schedule here next. Because if their defensive line can get pressure, that's going to improve the rest of the defense.
Mm-hmm.
If the defense can hold opponents down to under, 3 scores, 4 scores like they did in 2020 and give this offense time to kind of gel together, then Indiana's looking at surprising some teams this year, possibly. So, but I think the defensive line is really the key moving forward at the beginning of the year for the Hoosiers. At linebacker, you got Aaron Casey. He's a redshirt senior. And another transfer in Jacob Mangum Farrar,
Mm-hmm.
redshirt senior. So they are obviously playing a 4-2-5. Let's look at the back end of this defense. Cornerbacks and both transfers. Jameer Johnson, who's a junior, and Nicholas Toomer, who's a redshirt junior. Again, so you've got 5 transfers on your defense. That's basically half your defense transferring in. My concern for Indiana, Chris, would be the fact that you almost might have a Michigan State type of thing here with transfers. You're bringing them in, either it's going to be boom or bust type of thing, possibly.
And I don't see a Kenneth Walker on there.
No, at safety you got Josh Sanguinetti, redshirt senior, Luis Moore senior, and Noah Pierre, a redshirt senior. So a lot of upper class safeties there for you on the back end that might be able to help clean up any issues they have from the transfers on the outsides. Again, a transfer kicker and freshman Nicholas Radikic and James Evans, the junior punter, rounds out the special teams for this Indiana Hoosiers. So that's my concern defensively, Chris, for these guys, is how long will it take for them to gel together? That's why I think it's really critical that the defensive line steps up right away for these guys, because as we've seen in the past with our own defense, if you're not getting pressure up front, that can really reveal a lot of holes on the back end of your defense that might be there. And so I'm kind of afraid for Tom Allen and the Indiana Hoosiers defense that if they're not getting good enough pressure up front, they're going to be picked apart on defense.
Well, I almost think that I look at this and I think this may have to be a bit of a blitz happy defense. But you know what happens when you get blitz happy is you create a lot of one-on-one matchups,
You
and
do?
you can't have a one-on-one matchup when you've got a linebacker trying to cover any of Ohio State's wide receivers. You're toast if that happens.
They were creative with their blitz packages back in 2020,
They were.
2019.
Honestly, though, I feel like they had a higher caliber of athlete on that team as well, though.
It's a very good possibility. It's a very good possibility that that's the case.
And I
Only
hope for
time.
Tom Allen that I'm wrong. I hope, because let me tell you something, Eric. I like Tom Allen as a coach.
Yeah.
I really do.
As
I
we learned
mean,
with Brandon, the whole LEO thing stands for love everyone. It's
yeah,
cool. It's really cool. And um, there was a great vibe in Indiana 2 years ago that
there
is
was.
that's just kind of melded away with Penix Jr. leaving. And we'll see if getting a higher caliber quarterback, which is what they've got now,
Yes.
can make the difference. It's just he's young. He's so young. We saw flashes from Penix Jr. as a freshman, and it was that next season that he kind of exploded on the scene. And so we'll see if it's similar this year, because if they can sneak up, I think, and get 4 or 5 wins, I think his job is going to be safe. Like there's no doubt,
But this becomes the one concern with that, though, Eric. What their strength is this year is their offensive line. Next year, you're going to be graduating a whole lot of guys.
Yes, you are.
So,
Transfer portal central again, maybe. I
yeah,
don't know. I don't know. We'll have to see. All right, let's take a look at Indiana's 2023 schedule here, shall we? All right, they start the season, of course, like we've been talking about just about nonstop here, at home against Ohio State. So they welcome the Buckeyes into Memorial Stadium. Uh, I don't want to go through this, you and me, game by game, but let's just kind of look. And when I go through the game, Chris, you tell me if it is winnable or not.
yes,
Ohio State.
no,
Okay. September 8th. So this would be a Friday night. So they play the following Friday night at home against Indiana State. And I do not believe Indiana State has got Larry Bird on their team this time.
no.
Okay.
Yeah, I thought this is a winnable game, Eric. I think a lot of it depends on what happens versus Ohio State, though. How healthy
September,
are they? Yeah,
yeah. September 16th. Let me say this. They better win that game.
they better.
They better win that game.
But yeah,
That's Ohio State versus Youngstown
or,
State is what that is right there.
yeah. And if they don't win this, well, you know what though? A few years back, we might have said this is Michigan versus Appalachian State.
Ooh, that's true. Let's just any Michigan fans listen, let's just give them that dagger, please. September 16th is a neutral site game, although I don't know how much neutral it could be since it's in Indianapolis and Bloomington's much closer. But in Indianapolis at Lucas Oil Stadium, they welcome in the Cardinals, the Louisville Cardinals. This is a big rivalry game for them, as I've learned with Brandon there. These two teams do not like each other. Two basketball schools here.
Yeah,
Going to play a little bit of football here inside of Lucas Oil. What do you think?
I'm going to say it's slightly. There's a slight chance it's winnable,
Okay.
but I don't
So
have confidence.
this might be what you would call kind of the middle ground game where there's a
Yes,
chance here. Okay. September 23rd, a week later, also at home. This one is against Akron.
winnable.
Better be, yeah. September 30th, they go on the road for the first time at Maryland.
No,
Okay. Bye week, they get healthy, then they go on the road again to the Big House.
not even a chance.
October 21st, they welcome in Rutgers.
I think it's possibly winnable.
Hmm.
Possibly. I don't look for them to win it. I didn't call it, predict it as a win, but this is my thing. We talked about it. There's so much unknown about Taven Jackson. At this point, he's going to have, 5 games under his belt? 2 against very top flight competition. So who knows? If he gets a hot hand, if he gets lucky, maybe it's a winnable game.
It is at home, so let's call it a coin flip.
Yeah.
Then they go on the road October 28th, which is usually the date that is kind of set aside for Ohio State, Penn State, but they go on the road to take on Penn State for the Halloween weekend game.
That's not winnable.
It's it's an auto L, I would think.
Yeah.
However, they've clipped them before, so miracles do happen, right?
Much different team though, Eric.
They both have young quarterbacks. November 4th, home against the Fighting Luke Fickle Wisconsin Badgers.
Man, the schedule makers did not like Indiana. No, I don't think this is a winnable game at all.
November 11th, on the road. This is kind of a revenge factor for the Fighting Illini.
Yeah, history would tell us there's a chance, but I just don't think there is.
November 18th, home against Michigan State. Another revenge game. Double overtime win last year at East Lansing. Can they pull it off again?
No, actually, this is at Indiana.
I'm sorry. Yeah. But last year they lost
Yeah,
at East Lansing. They got them home again this year. They got them home this year. So can they do it again?
it's possible. We don't know what Michigan State has yet, so yeah, it's possible.
Another coin flip, maybe. And then they finished the year going on the road, going up the state there to West Lafayette to take on the Boilermakers in a rivalry game at Purdue.
I just don't see that one happening, Eric.
This one
It could be a coin flipper. It could be a coin flipper, but
I don't know what
I think these are teams going in divergent directions.
I really don't know what Purdue's got this year. They're a huge mystery to me.
I think there's a lot of teams like that in the Big Ten Conference this year.
Yeah, it's a good point. They're really, even the top end teams have got some pretty big question marks.
Sure.
Yeah. So I've got them. I've got 2 wins on them this year, guaranteed. I think they win Indiana State and Akron. I don't know that they win a Big Ten game, to be honest with you. If they do, I feel like they might be at the end of the year to nip Michigan State and Purdue possibly. If they're able to squeak one out against Rutgers at home, that gives them 5. Can I find another 6 win in there somewhere? Maybe they step up and get a big win at Lucas Oil against Louisville. Because it's kind of a rival game. Like there's a scenario where Indiana surprises everybody. There is that scenario, but I'm going to take the safe bet. I'm taking the under again. It worked for me last year. I'll go 2-10.
Yeah, Eric, I've also got them at 2-10, same 2 wins. And I'll be honest with you, Eric, I struggled to give them the Akron win. I really do. I think Akron's a team that's improving. And I haven't seen a whole lot out of Indiana the last 2 seasons. So,
Okay.
again, I hope I'm wrong. I'm taking the under as well. But I hope I'm wrong. Like I said, I hope that Allen can right the ship a little bit and, at least make this a competitive team.
All right. Speaking of the overs and unders and the little trying to make a little scratch, something new this year. We've got Brandon Jensen from Big Banter. He is our gambling expert, if you will, there on Big Banter. We're going to turn it over to him real fast. We're going to turn it over to him real fast and tell us what's the safe bet for Indiana this year.
So I'm Brandon Jensen, lead betting analyst at Big Banter Sports. Glad to be on the show. We'll move on towards the bottom feeders of the Big Ten, I must say, with Indiana at 3.5. It wasn't terribly long ago that Indiana was at Ohio State, giving us a scare. COVID, they almost got it done, but they could not quite, and it's just been downhill from there. We got new quarterbacks. We don't even know who the starter is officially yet, and I think both guys are going to get some playing time early in the season, and I don't think that's a recipe for success. I don't think there's enough defensive talent to fit the high pressure style that Tom Allen likes to run. So I don't see 4 wins. I'm going to have to go with the under at plus money.
All right, Chris. There we have it. Thank you so much, Brandon, for that. Final thoughts on Indiana this year. I think this is going to be kind of I don't want to say make or break year for Tom Allen because I think he's earned some goodwill with the Hoosier faithful. But I will say this: if he has another poor year, or what we're suggesting, I think his seat gets hot.
I kind of feel like his seat's already a little bit warm, Eric. Um, and again, this is a coach I really like, but I just don't see them. I just don't see the same passion out of this team that I saw 3 years ago. Um, I hope he can get it back. I really do. But I feel like, and I mentioned it before we started, or before we went to the over and unders. But I feel like these are two teams. This is a team going in the wrong direction right now. Um, who knows? Maybe I'm wrong. It's happened once before. Maybe Taven Jackson steps in there and he's the man to get it done. Maybe he is the next Michael Penix Jr. Maybe he can bring the passion and the play back to Indiana. But Eric, I just don't see it, and I don't see Tom Allen as a head coach next year at Indiana.
Ooh, ooh. This is Indiana we're talking about. We're not talking about Penn State here. We're not even talking about a team like Purdue, who has somewhat of a tradition, or Iowa, Wisconsin, This is Indiana. This is the doormat of the Big Ten when it comes to college football. And I don't think the expectations from the Indiana athletic department for their football program, or from their fan base for that matter, are winning seasons consistently. I think the fact that he did what he did in 2019 and 2020 gives him at least 2 more seasons there. One more after this year, at least.
I hope you're right, but I just don't see it. The fact is, the worst thing that you can give a fan base is hope. And that's what he did in 2019 and 2020. He created hope within this fan base. He created hope within the university that this was going to be a team that could be competitive on a regular basis. Maybe not competing for a Big Ten title or even a Big Ten East crowd, because honestly, you look at it, this team is in a bad division. You put this team out west, especially in 2019 and 2020, they're competitive, man.
Oh,
they're very competitive.
They're probably winning the West.
I agree. But you know what? The fact is, the expectation, I believe, is that he's set forth is at least be bowl eligible. That's what you get after 2 successful seasons in 2019, 2020. You've gone off the rails the last 2 seasons. And I'll tell you, you've got a very highly touted young quarterback that's coming in there. And if they don't do more than 2 wins, if they do not at least get 5 wins this season, I don't think Tom Allen's got. Yeah, maybe he's got. A lot of people have the love for Tom Allen, but I just don't think that they're going to have the patience for him.
There's the love there, but you bring up a very good point. Is there the patience? Yeah. We'll see. We'll see what happens, because, like I said, and that opening game could be huge for him, because even if Ohio State, let's say Ohio State pulls, just like Brandon predicted, Ohio State pulls away in the second half, kind of similar to what we saw in 2018, I believe it was.
Yeah, if he keeps it close for the first half or the first 3 quarters and has a competitive game, that's going to go a long way.
Go ahead and start over.
Yeah, I agree. That first game is huge, because if they keep this close for the first half, the first 3 quarters, that's going to go a long way in instilling confidence in the fans, and more so instilling confidence in a team and a young quarterback. That could set it up. If they can go in and, okay, they lose to Ohio State, but like you said, they pull it away in the 4th quarter. They beat Indiana State. They beat Louisville. They beat Akron. They stay competitive with Maryland and Michigan. Now all of a sudden, you get the confidence that, we can beat Rutgers. Oh, you know what? We've stunned Penn State before. Wisconsin's got a lot of new guys too. Maybe we can, they're coming to our house. Maybe we can get them. Illinois, yeah, they're going in the right direction, but hey, we stunned them last year. Maybe we can do it again. That confidence comes if they play strong against Ohio State, Maryland, and Michigan.
Yeah. So I think there's three things here for Indiana football. Here's my three things. Number one, how good will this quarterback be and how quickly can he get to that level? Number two, can they get off to a good start this season? I think that's also really, really important for them. And then number three, in my opinion, is can that defensive line keep them competitive defensively? I don't care how good they are offensively. If they're giving up 50, 60 points a game, it's not
Right.
going to It's not going to matter.
They're not going to win
So
a track meet.
no, they are
They're
not.
just not.
They've got it. They need to fight it in a phone booth. That's who they're going to have
Yeah.
to be this year. So that's going to be Indiana to a nutshell this year. We'll know. I think we'll know by middle of the third quarter if Tom Allen has got the kind of team that he might be able to get that 4, 5, 6 wins.
Well,
We'll
you
know
know,
by the middle of third quarter.
I'm looking again at this, Eric, and I'll tell you, this schedule, the schedule makers did not love Indiana on
It's
this one at all.
brutal. It's brutal.
I mean, you've got the East, which is brutal in and of itself, but then you give them the cross divisional games with Wisconsin, at Illinois, who I think is much improved. Old Birdie's doing a pretty good job over there. At Purdue to finish the season, yeah, it's a rivalry game, but man, there's just for a team that's struggling or has struggled the last 2 years, that's brutal.
Yeah, there's no Northwestern on this roster on the
No.
schedule. That team's not sitting there for them. So, but there is a Rutgers there.
They are the Northwestern on this schedule. That's the sad part.
Yeah. So, well, all right. So there you have it. My prediction is 2-10.
Mine as well.
His prediction's 2-10. We both say take the under. That's kind of what we believe here as well. And we'll find Indiana. We'll see them right away. They're game number 1 for Ohio State. So make sure you stay tuned to the OHIO podcast so that you can get that preview when week number 1 rolls around. We'll have a lot of good stuff for you then. So please like, share, subscribe. That really does help out the channel. And make sure you come back because we're going to have another Big Ten team preview for you later this week. It's going to be Michigan State. We're going to take a look at Sparty next here on the OHIO podcast. Till next time, go Bucks.